This video explains how I separate gold from Paydirt samples so that people watching my gold Paydirt reviews can judge for themselves if I'm collecting all of the gold that's in the samples. It also explains why I do it the way I do. The first thing I do is weigh the sample and see if it weighs as much as the advertisement says it should. Next, I use a set of 9 classification screens like this to separate the sample into 10 different sizes. These are plus meshes, which means that these are the rocks that did not pass through the number 2 or 1/2 inch mesh. I like classifying to this detail because I find it interesting to see how the different grains are distributed in the sample. Also, for people watching the reviews, it gives them an idea of what type of material they're going to be working with and which separation technique will work best for them. In case you were wondering, this unlabeled sample is the -100 mesh. That is, this is material that passed through a 100 mesh screen. As I use each screen, I'm very careful afterwards to clean out all the material that might be stuck in the screens. Gold is very soft and it's very easy to have it stick in one of these. And that could cause 2 problems. First of all, a piece of gold might get put into the wrong category, but more importantly, it might stick and then the next time I do a sample, get kicked out so that the first sample was cheated and the second sample was enhanced unfairly. After I finish classifying it, I take the number 50 through -100 and put them in a separate container. These will be run through my Miller table. The remaining samples, number 2 through number 30, are kept separate for examination to see if there are any nuggets in there. Next, I don a pair of 5-power magnifying binocular glasses and spread each sample out over a sheet of flat black paper and very meticulously go through and sort it, looking for any small pickers or nuggets. Now, I know this is going to sound crazy, and in a way it is. The first 3 screenings go by fairly quickly, just a few minutes. Once you get down to the number 20, for example, that's what this is, you're going to spend an hour going through this, and the number 30 is 2 hours. So why do I waste so much time? The fact is, you're going to lose money prospecting for gold, whether you go out into the field or buy Paydirt like I do. When you include all of the costs, if you go out in the field, you have transportation costs, housing costs, costs of equipment, and especially if you put any sort of value on your time, you're going to lose money. For me, buying the Paydirt, the only way it makes sense is if I get enough time value out of its entertainment to make it worthwhile. And I actually find sorting through the individual grains looking for the odd nugget quite satisfying. It feels more like I'm hunting for gold rather than using a pan or a Miller table to produce it for me. And if I'm not mistaken, there's one right there. All right, it's not very big, but it's a nice little piece of gold. Let's take a closer look. For reference, that's a toothpick. So, not very big, but it's fun to find it. Let's see if we can get some more. Altogether, it took me 3 hours to work through the number 2 through number 30 meshes. And this is what I got. It may seem like a lot of work, but one of the advantages of hand picking like this, besides filling time, is that you get a greater appreciation for how unique each piece of gold is, just like a snowflake, no two are alike. The log you're seeing on the far right is actually the tip of a toothpick to provide you some sense of scale. The 2 large pieces near it are +20 pickers, if you allow tweezers to be used for pickers, and the rest of them were in the number 30 pile. And if you take a look, an extreme example is the piece of wire gold on the far left bent into an L. And that's the way I found it. I didn't bend it like that. If you look closely, you can see it's actually more complicated. There are about a dozen little pieces which are on the verge of breaking off. If this had been carried downstream another mile or so, all those pieces might have been broken off to form minus 50 pieces. But as it is right now, it's a plus 30 or maybe even a plus 20, depending on how it went through the screens. This is one of the reasons why I don't mind taking a lot of time to find the gold. The question now is what to do with the material from the number 2 through the plus 30 screens. It's much too coarse to run over my miller table, which is the way I prefer to process it. And yet there could be quite a bit of gold in here, either that I missed in the hand picking or that's attached in one way or another to some of the rocks. The answer is the Cobra Crusher. This is a small rock grinder I got from Amazon for about $400, and the angle cutter was another $40. And what this lets me do is it literally in a minute to turn all of that rock into a fine powder, which I then pass through a number 30 screen. And if there's anything that hasn't been ground up, I run it through again, and this takes care of it. This lets me run it through the miller table and catch any fine gold that might have been clinging to the rocks or tied up in them. I process all of my material over a miller table for the same reason that I handpick the coarser meshes. It allows me to experience the discovery of each individual piece of gold as a unique event. As I spoon the samples on, I use the same 5-power magnifying glasses that I used for the hand picking so that I can spot even the smallest pieces. When I find one, I use a special pair of tweezers with needle points on them that allow me to pick individual pieces up down to a minus 70 mesh. At around a plus 100, a minus 100, I have to go to the snuffer bottle. But this allows me to capture each piece one at a time, which is what I enjoy. Okay, let's see if we can find something. I go very slowly, no more than a teaspoon at a time, and let the table do its work. And whoop, what's that? And there we go. That's probably a plus 40 mesh. Kind of a pretty little piece. Add that to the collection. The last thing I do is to weigh it. The scale is accurate to 1/1000th of a gram. And here's a close-up of a typical result. The two large pieces on the left are the plus 20s I found during the hand picking, and the very smallest specks are smaller than minus 100. I've tried panning the black sands passed by the miller table several times, and in each case all I got were at most 4 or 5 tiny specks down around 200 mesh. So I have good confidence that the miller table is catching just about everything there is to catch. And that's how I test my samples of Paydirt. I hope this answered any questions you might have after viewing one of my Paydirt review videos. Thank you very much for watching.